Hello and welcome back to the Pinnacle Esports channel. Today we're back with the Pinnacle Stack podcast, and today joining us is Dinko. Welcome into our stack. You would have seen last week we did a lot of coverage across many events. We're going to slightly cut it down this time, but the main one that we're going to look at to begin with is the Pinnacle Cup V. And we've got Brandon who's been casting. So Brandon, are there any points that you've seen across any teams that you're liking the look of coming into the Swiss stage?
Yeah, so I think the first points are really the teams that went 3-0. I think a little bit unexpected. I think Ecstatic and Espionage in particular going 3-0 is kind of wild to me. They took down Aurora, and I think that was actually just quite a blowout. Yeah, it was 16-7 on Aurora's map pick and Mirage, and Aurora they're kind of this team that is kind of floating around like the top end of tier 2, but they really struggled, and that did surprise me a lot. I think also Eternal Fire not getting off to the best of starts. They are 2-1, but they lost to Los Cogutos, and like a lot of people are gonna be like, how have they done that? I casted that game. I wasn't too sure. It just kind of looked like a rough day in the office for Eternal Fire, so can't really be too upset with them. And I guess Orcs as well, a team that's attending Pro League a bit later in the month. Didn't know what to expect from them, but they've actually got some really good structure when I've been watching them play, especially on their T sides. And it's something I definitely didn't expect. I also thought that HS would kind of take a little bit of time to warm into this roster, but he's actually one of the most standout players on this team. So I think that's the, I guess, expectations that I had. I didn't expect some of these teams to do as well as they have done. But when I take a look down the list, I think the only team that I think is underperforming right now would probably be, I guess, OG, if you want to be harsh, for not going 3-0, and Nine Pandas for not actually making it through at the moment. They're 1-2, which I think that Nine Pandas team is, again, a really good team in tier 2. I think the players they've got are very solid, because you've got the likes of Seized, Clax, I Just Balance on the AWP as well, and they were dominating pretty much every single CCT circuit. They'd make it through the Swiss stage no problem. So the fact they're struggling here, and it's a little bit worrying for them, but I think that's just because you kind of got a good mix of high tier 2 teams and lower tier 1 teams, and the step up has just not been the smoothest for them.
It's also worth saying, B-Dog, he had to get Dinko on the pod today because his old mate Donk isn't in the tournament anymore, and he just found the talent with the closest name to Donk and got him on the podcast. So there we go.
Yeah, another fellow child prodigy, Hawker. That's me. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing Donk, man. I'm sad he's not there in the tournament, but I've been doing a little bit of research into him, and I can see why you're loving him, Brandon. I was looking through some clips, and feels like you've casted every one of his big moments. So I feel like you are just synonymous with Donk at this point. It's kind of your whole career trajectory is following this 16-year-old.
Yeah, well, to make it worse, the way that you phrased that is that he was on my recommended on Twitch for streaming, and I clicked on it because I was like, well, maybe we get some more insight, and there is valuable insight there because he speaks English as well, so he's not just limited to CIS teams. Yeah. He could also join a European side in the future.
Yeah, that's true. But the cool thing about Donk is when you look at one thing that people don't really consider is the fact that they just see the flag Russia and they see they played in a European team straight away, and he's playing Face It. But if you actually look at where he's from in Russia, in Tomsk, he actually is as far east as China and Eastern India and Nepal, and that's where he's been playing his whole career. So it's kind of wild. He's been playing with like 100+ ping in pretty much his entire career, and he's that good. So I'm excited to see what he does when he comes to LAN.
Yeah, I think he's currently the highest rated player at Pinnacle Cup, which after the 3 maps that he's played, he won't be playing anymore. Might be able to keep that spot up there. So definitely after Brandon's bold prediction last week of best academy player ever. Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Was it best academy prospect you claimed?
Yeah, I think, but
I think better than Munison was the quote, wasn't it?
The caveat with that, I think, is you got to give Donk a few more years. He's only 16. Remember, he's 16 years old, and Munison is currently 18.
And once Brandon starts, molding him by going on the stream and giving him advice.
No.
Oh, here we go. What a start to the podcast. This is great. I'm so glad that this is the first thing we're doing in the morning, Brandon. You've really made my day already, Brandon. I'm excited for what's to come next.
That's awful.
I could just imagine you as like a Ted Lasso style coach.
Yeah, that's what I see. Yeah.
Yep.
Taking
Sweatbands.
to the upper echelons of CS:GO.
Please,
or
let's move on.
CS2.
Well, now we know if Donk's career fails, everyone, B-Dog is to blame.
Yes, my fault.
Are you still standing behind that after Monazy went on and won Katowice
Yeah, why
and
not?
Cologne in the same year?
Yeah.
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 He said it now. He's
He
committed.
said it. He's gonna
You could
go
save
with it.
yourself here. You could say it would still be quite a bold statement, but you could also save yourself and say that he's going to be the best rifler out of the Academy League. Now, he still would have to compete with Bit, who has been really good, but I see a world in which Donk is better than him, right? So you could save yourself here, Brandon.
Yeah, you heard it here first. I said exactly that.
But what are you thinking about Question Mark, the team that's been made up of JDC, Searson, Bird from Sky?
It's
Nico,
an
Danish Nico.
it's an interesting team. I think that they went 0-2 to start with, but then they got a default win. But to be fair to them, you take a look at the teams that they played, right? They played against Spirit in the opener when Spirit were playing in Pinnacle Cup, and they took a map off them. Then they went straight into Eternal Fire. And so it literally is a trial by fire for that team. I like it. I feel like it's impressive that we can still come out of Rostermania and still have all of these teams that can just be like put together and they're pretty decent. So I feel like, look, Bird from Sky has always been a very good IGL, especially in the tier 2 scene. Searson getting another shot, really exciting. Nico's a solid rifler, JDC as well. I feel like his time was cut maybe a little bit short on Mouse, but it makes a lot of sense when you're bringing in Chewy and Yimfat. Yeah, I like it. I don't know what to expect from it, but I like it.
JDC's actually been their best fragger so far, which is pretty impressive, gotta say.
I think you probably expect that now that he's got probably a bit more freedom. And I'm interested to see, Ken Searson rise up again. I'm assuming this team's mainly going to play online tournaments, which would be kind of where Searson's able to put the big numbers in. So I think this is going to be a team that's really scary in a lot of online qualifiers and a lot of these sort of online cups that we see so many of as well. So I think when you're looking at this team, it's kind of exciting because Nico's also had some recent experience in-game leading under OG, right? So I think you've got Bird for Sky and Nico. They can be the brains of the operations, and I think you've got a lot of exciting players in this team. I think it'll be a really deadly online side. I don't know if it's going to transition into LAN, but I think an online team for sure. But I did see during the qualifiers for Sydney, we've seen 2 question marks going up against each other. Team question mark versus team question mark. It's the return of the question mark.
Yeah, team question mark won actually. Yeah. So that was a close game.
Really?
Shit. Okay, that's unexpected. What a turnaround.
But out of the teams that are currently 2-1, Brandon, you got Eternal Fire, Aurora, Los Kugos, OG, Eyeballers, Orcs. How are those guys? You expecting what, Eternal Fire, maybe OG? I'm honestly surprised to see Eyeballers in 2-1 because they've been playing with a stand-in.
Yeah, they have been, but they got one of their wins for a default. Sense Academy couldn't play, so it was like a schedule clash. I think you should see Aurora going through. You should see Eternal Fire going through in 3-1. Like Eternal Fire should be Orcs and Aurora should be Eyeballers. And also OG should beat Los Kagutos. So I think those are the teams that should go through to the playoffs. And then from there, you'll have like a bunch of 2-2 teams. I'd like to see 9 Pandas. I wouldn't mind Sampi, but I think that's going to be hard for them. So yeah, I kind of expect the teams in the top half to kind of go through to the playoffs.
Sampi always remind me of Scampi. I don't know. When I think of that team, I think of like a delicious little deep fat fried fish treat, and that's what I think of with that team. And
kind of looks like it with the logo,
for me, but yeah, I think maybe that's what they're going with, Brandon.
Maybe.
The Alive. I remember casting him with you, Hawk, like ages ago. I think it was at the V4 festival in Budapest, and we got to see quite a lot of this team play on LAN, and they're actually really exciting on LAN. So I think this team from Slovakia, Sampi, I think quietly number 41 in the world. They've got The Alive, which is probably one of the best names in CS. So I think this team is actually really exciting. And I think, their LAN potential was really exciting to see back in 2021. And hopefully they've only kind of got better from then. I would like to see them at some bigger tournaments down the line. So hopefully they can start to prove themselves a bit more in some of these online tournaments.
Yeah, they were really well structured, actually. It might be one of those where it's just so hard to get to land, so you just don't get to see them that much. But yeah, I would like to see more from them.
It's that
Definitely.
team at the moment reminds me a lot of Eternal Fire last year in terms of it's kind of just being like a one-man show right now, because they've just got Matties, who is one of the best prospects coming out of the like Slovakian region. Like he's held in a really high regard. Sinners have been talking about wanting to get him for like the best part of 18 months and never could because his buyout is pretty ridiculous. But he's averaging like a 1.23. He had like a 2.85 rating in one of his games the other week on HLTV.
Wow.
Like it was actually ridiculous. But I feel like the rest of the team needs to kind of step up around him and elevate that team's floor, because otherwise it starts to get a little bit awkward. And you're kind of getting games where it's really top heavy and they can't close because it's one guy doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, he's currently up there, only a 0.03 behind Zantares. So I think that's quite a statement to be putting out, especially from a region, I mean, much like Zantares, that isn't really particularly got much in the game currently at the top level. So yeah, it's definitely players to watch across all of these teams. But coming into the playoffs after the Swiss starts, currently got 3 teams confirmed. So Monty, Bad News Eagles, and Brandon's favorite Astralis. Out of those 3, could you see one of them taking it over any of the teams here in the Swiss stage?
Is that to me?
Who's
Or
that? Was that
just,
for Brandon?
yeah. It's just open one?
Anyone open?
Come through, Brandon. Give your thoughts first, Astralis fanboy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, they should be going very deep in this tournament. But with that being said, I feel like Astralis have got the biggest potential to slip up against teams like Eternal Fire, teams like Aurora, where they play a little bit more unpredictable. They don't really play like the highest structure CS we see in tier 1. So I feel like there's a lot of pitfalls there, especially like Monte can just really take it to Astralis. Like their individuals can just overwhelm them at times. So I don't know. I need to see the bracket, but at the same time, I expect Astralis to do well, but I don't expect them to win the whole thing.
I expect them to win the whole thing. I think they absolutely should win the whole thing.
I
You're
think they
looking at this
should,
team,
yeah.
and you look in the whole tournament. They're clearly the best team in there. They've got the best player in the competition. Device. No one's even touching the same floor that Device goes down to. Like, this guy is so much better than the rest of the field. And you got Ster coming in. Buzz, if he keeps up any of that form from Cologne, this Astralis team have the potential to break that sort of structure you're talking about and actually go into just fragging. And they have so many options to do that with now, right? Blame F has maybe seen a little dip in his form since picking up the calling, but we've seen Buzz elevated. We've seen Ster coming in, and he has some good maps here and there. And then Device is just being incredible. And I think if you look at the other teams that are high seed invites, you look at BNE, they've kind of sucked online recently. And I think a lot of their fans are expressing the frustration recently of what Bad News Eagles have been bringing to the server, losing the teams they really shouldn't. And I would say that Apex, they're probably the most likely for me to sort of challenge for that title alongside Astralis, but I'd just give it to Astralis overall. I think they're just the best team in this competition. And yeah, I guess online is the one sort of worrying part, but you look at Astralis, they should win this. They absolutely should.
Yeah, I can see the case for Apex. I think that's about it. Apex actually
just for
played a really
context,
close series.
Apex have dropped out of the
Oh
tournament.
no!
So they're
So-
gone?
No.
So,
There is no
so Astralis,
Apex.
silver, platter with the Pinnacle Cup right on top of it, I think, for them at this point.
Oh, so is it Monty instead of Apex?
So it's Monty, Astralis, Bad News Eagles. I don't believe a 4th has been confirmed.
Right.
Currently, but because
Oh, Monty are not bad either, though.
I think Monte will
Bro
do
was one of
well.
the surprise performances for me at Cologne. I think he played exceptional because I expected absolutely nothing from this guy. Didn't know much about him, and when he came into the team and then put up some really good numbers, yeah, he was one of my biggest surprises there. But Bad News Eagles as well as a team, as you're saying, that they've been losing to quite a few people they probably shouldn't have. Alternate Attacks was the main one, who then
Yeah.
also took down Apex with that
Yeah.
insane comeback on Ancient recently.
Oh yeah, that was
So,
wild. I was like
Yeah.
10-5.
Bad News Eagles are like Bad News Eagles right now are like the SK Gaming that went on that sort of terror online years ago and just lost to literally everybody. This is the run that BNE are on at the moment, and I think Devilwalk's been pretty vocal on social media about being disappointed with the results. He's obviously getting quite a bit of flack from the fans as well. I'm sure they're directing their frustrations. A lot of fans full of pride get behind BNE, and obviously when you're losing to teams that don't really match what your level is, you're getting a lot of frustrations there. And I think that sort of negative mindset they're in right now, if they don't fix it coming into this tournament, it might just get even worse for them. I feel like BNE are definitely a team that perform better on LAN in that official environment. When you're sitting right beside each other and you feel the energy of the tournament. When you're online, I don't know if BNE are going to be able to sort of rise to the occasion here. I think they're a team that could even lose to a lot of the teams coming up from the sort of Swiss stage of the tournament.
Yeah, I could see it too. I do think Monty are the exciting ones because they came into Cologne saying, oh, we actually get to play with structure now. Like, we can play a completely different style. And I was not expecting that at all. I thought that was just going to be complete, like, it wasn't going to work straight away. But then SDY has, like, put this system together, and they looked really good in the late round. They looked like they were on the same page a lot of the time. I think Waro was finally playing well at Cologne, which I was waiting for a while.
Mhm.
So Monty are, like, low-key a really solid team. I will say with Bro, I don't know if he can keep up that level because, like, some of the plays he was pulling off were like, it's almost like actually don't know how you've done this. It's almost like this weird, like the stars have aligned for you to win a 1v3 with a 5-7 or something. So
Mhm.
we'll see on Bro because he didn't have much hype before this lineup, but other than that, yeah, exciting lineup.
So Astralis are favorites for pretty much everybody. I think if they don't
should
win, it would
be.
be rather disappointing for them.
Oh yeah, it'd be massively disappointing for them, but Astralis kind of used to that at the moment, aren't they? So I think coming into this tournament, though, I think their frame of how they're viewing their performances has changed absolutely. When you head to a playoffs of Cologne and you look that good, and you have Buzz, who probably feels the most confident he ever has, right? At Cologne, in one of the most important games of the tournament, he was able to pick up his best ever career performance. So I think if Buzz doesn't sort of continue that for another couple of weeks at least, I feel like that's really disappointing. I feel like it's unlikely that he will drop off massively. So I'm expecting some good Buzz performances alongside Device and Blame F, and that for me is enough to win this tournament.
And of those three that are alongside Blameth and Device, we know what we're getting from them too. Like they are experienced beyond experience at this point. And Blameth not so much as Device in terms of silverware and actually making events. I think is it Blameth who hasn't been to a major yet?
No, Blame F was in Antwerp, so that was
Okay.
the one major he was at was in Antwerp, right? So obviously, with a player of that caliber, it feels like he's been around for a very long time. Everyone, I would expect him to have been to more majors overall, but
Yeah.
he's had a really disappointing career at times where there's like you can see little glimpses of what Blame F is capable of, winning blast trophies of complexity. You know his CT rating last year was one of the highest in the world. So for me, Blame F is just a player I finally feel like heading into CS2 will get his flowers for the first time.
Yeah, and with this Astralis lineup, which of those three players do you think that they're looking to be that extra person there to perform? I've Borup and Buzz.
I would say it should be Stare, to be honest.
It should
but
be,
It kind of has
Yeah.
been Buzz in a weird way. Like Buzz, he's even put in a lot of like he doesn't entry all the time, but I feel like when Buzz is having to entry, it's in like the hardest positions to entry, where it's like with the pack and they're just sending him in first, and he's somehow getting entries. Whereas Stare is meant to have a little more freedom to sort of like outmaneuver his opponents, and I haven't seen enough of that yet. Sadly, like he was okay at Cologne, but if anything, I was probably a bit more impressed by Borup, who I was expecting not to do much and was actually very solid on this team. So
he was,
yeah.
and he's definitely been a really impressive support development at it. But the other thing you talk about with Stara and Buzz is, like you said, Buzz did have the more impressive performance at Cologne. But the thing is with Buzz, you have to remember how little experience he has playing at a good level of CS, right? He was playing in this Masonic team with Castle actually as the coach, who's current coach of Astralis. And he was really this loose cannon, lone wolf entry lurk. Like he would be the first player to take contact on the other side of the map, and you would see him at times in Masonic and you would wonder, what is going through his mind, if anything. So there was going to have to be a lot of reining in when he went to tier one, and he had sort of a very quick step up, and obviously having a tough time at the start of his Astralis tenure, but really exciting stuff under BlameF so far. And Ster has been playing at a higher level for longer and hasn't transitioned as smoothly just yet. So I've been really impressed by Buzz, but I think over time, I have to agree with Hawkeye. I think Ster is going to be that player that will start to fit into that spot. That's what you brought him in for, and over time, he should transition into that role.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
and they're definitely a team built for the future, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure they are. And I feel like Borup was getting a lot of, I guess, unnecessary flack. I guess because some of his stats towards the couple of games, I agree, you can't really go too missing in a semi-final. But if you step back and you look at the event as a whole, I think Borup was a really key piece to the Astralis success to get them into that playoff run anyway. I felt like his support was really good. And considering, again, he's a player that hasn't had too much experience in recent times back up at the top. So for him to kind of come back in immediately and look like probably like 80% comfortable is a really good sign for Astralis. So the fact that they're integrating all of these young players into their lineup with a brand new in-game leader and they are hitting the ground running, it only should spell success for Astralis.
Yeah, and you also just you really don't want to get a rookie in or a younger player in to play like Borup's roles. I think that's kind of the worst thing you could do for a lot of these young players who probably aren't used to playing that way and don't have those strengths. So I'm with you. I think it actually has worked out quite nicely to have just that little bit more stability, and then as long as Buzz and Stare can play well, yeah, this roster. I mean, finally Astralis might be back. They might just be back.
I think it's good as well that they've taken an invite like Pinnacle Cup, because you see a lot of times these teams will come together with a lot of youngsters and they don't play enough in official matches. So it's nice to see them. Unfortunately, they're not at Gamers8. I believe that's due to qualification reasons. But the next time we see them play after this, IEM, not IEM, sorry, ESL Pro League, they'll play in Group A, first game against NIP. So they did take them down in the lower bracket of Cologne, quite convincingly. I think it was a 2-0. And Borup, for me, was the person in that match that really stood out. So I agree with you guys. I think Stir is the one who we're going to see a lot more in the future. But currently, I think they still need to mold together to become this team. But definitely favorites for Pinnacle Cup. I think OG might be another one coming out of the Swiss stage. If they do qualify as they should today. But I still don't know how to feel about them. They're kind of underwhelming to me.
OG is a team that I've seen enough of already. I think with the talent announcement, the player announcement rather, I think that was enough for me to kind of see the ceiling. And I think they exceeded a lot of people's expectations coming into the first event out. I think that people expected them to be absolutely disappointing, just flat, but I think they overperformed a little bit to what people were expecting. But I don't know, as the rest of the teams and just the rest of the fields improve and have more time with their new rosters, I think you're going to see OG just start to fall down, and some of those results will be a lot more difficult to get. So for me, OG is a team that has really low ceiling based on the roster that they have, from my opinion. And they've kind of exceeded the initial idea of what they would be able to do, but I don't know if they can go any further.
Yeah, it's interesting with OG because I actually thought they were gonna. Well, firstly, I wasn't sure if they beat 9 in the opening match, which they didn't end up doing. But then I was expecting, for me, I thought Complexity would beat OG, to be honest. I just thought they had a bit more structure. But then
Yeah.
OG actually beat Complexity and Apex. And then when they actually went to Cologne, they had really tough draws, actually. They lost against Vitality and Na'Vi. Can't really be too mad about that. It still looks like a lineup that you wouldn't expect to do that well. But I think one of the saving graces is Nexa is normally going to be a good fragging IGL. And then Keto has actually been way better than usual in this team so far. He's actually been a pretty good fragger. So I think it's just the fact they have like pretty great firepower, surprisingly, that makes them actually scary. Like their firepower is better than you initially looked at on this team because Keto's played well. And then you have Nexa, who just brings up like the overall floor of the fragging pretty well. So I think that makes them like a little scary at times, but it's just the classic thing where Nexa for me is not really like a true IGL. He just kind of does it because he has to, and then you're not going to get the most out of your pieces. And I will say Regali also looks pretty damn good as an AWPer. He's actually going to be solid, but there's always then the question of why don't you still have Dexter on the lineup, which is a bit annoying. So yeah, just a weird situation all around, really.
I think with the sort of Regali question, my thoughts on that matter are this. I think there was a lot of rumors around OG wanting to rebuild around Fiku. And behind the scenes at events, you would see Fiku and Regali, especially at Dallas, had a really close-knit relationship. And Regali is a very good AWPer. And I think with Dexter being a little bit more volatile, maybe emotionally, and maybe a bit tough to get visas for sometimes, it might have just made business sense and personal sense if you're building around Fiku to bring in Regali for the long term. And he's a very good sniper. I'm excited to see what he can do. I feel like it's going to be another problem with this team where I think maybe the AWPer will kind of surpass the level of OG and maybe feel like he's in a bit of a cage. But for me, that the Regali move, that's the reasoning behind it from what I can see.
Do you not think it was a bit odd that they built around Fiku in the first place?
It's very odd, isn't it? Because Fiku wasn't like the crazy good player. In fact, there was a term we used when we were playing fantasy and we would pick Fiku, we'd get kind of baited by the low price. And we would get Fiku'd, because, you'd have one big performance at the start where you just farm your points, and then suddenly you're sitting on minus 30, and you have no idea how that happened. You just got Fiku'd. So, it's a little strange for me.
Yeah, I think if anything, he at some points looked like he was in a position where maybe they were going to go without him for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I never really, even with the old lineup, I didn't really see them as a playoff team. Maybe if the bracket was like good for them, or maybe if it was like a pro league where 4 of the 8 teams from that group go through. But see them even like they're in an even worse position now from what they were in terms of players. I think we spoke about Fasha last time. Hawker, did you spoke on Fasha last time, saying that maybe he doesn't even really belong at this level?
Yeah, I think even at Cologne, like there are a few maps where Fasha had a pretty rough time of things, and it's also just because like you look at Fiku as the more supportive player on the team for the most part, and I don't know what's gone on with Fasha because I still think there's a player in there. I think his raw like aim and skill is there. I just for whatever reason it hasn't worked, and sometimes you get those players. Like it's kind of what Counter-Strike is. It's not a game where you can just fully be an incredible aimer and always transition that into a career. So yeah, wait and see on that one, I guess.
And I think for the Pinnacle Cup, we're expecting Astralis to win. OG, we'd like to see them go into the Swiss stage, look competitive at the very least. But the current Swiss stage is happening right now, so you can go watch that. The playoffs will be happening later this week. So yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on Astralis when the bracket comes out and seeing how they're doing. But the next thing I want to talk about is IEM Sydney. The coast qualifiers have been happening. The biggest thing for me is Furia. They are so disappointing at the minute. They failed to qualify. I think they lost to Sprout, and it wasn't even like close to qualifying. It was the very opening stage. The first games that they get put on HLTV for the close qualifier. I don't even know what to say about them at this point. It seems like there's such a leadership problem, like fighting against each other. Yeah, I don't know what you guys feel about Furia.
I have a lot of thoughts, but I think we should maybe let Brandon have your say first, and then I'll follow up if you don't cover what I'm thinking.
What, Furia?
Yeah.
I understand the decision why they got Fallen, but at the same time, that the minute you bring Fallen in, you're gonna have probably either personalities clashing, or you're gonna have just an entire restructuring issue. And Furia's structure was already really loose out the window. I feel like if by adding Fallen and like changing your AWPer, you're also adding Cello in as well. And there are 2 players that, in my opinion, just from watching, I don't think will kind of how do I phrase this properly? Just like the way that I see these guys play as well, it doesn't look like they'll be like as open to ideas. If they've got an idea in their mind that they want to do, especially Cello, I feel like he'll just do it. And and you've got Art running about doing art things. I feel like there's no structure in this team. I feel like that there's a coaching issue in this team as well, and I I don't know what people expected when you see this lineup. I thought they'd make deeper runs based purely on their aim alone, but to a tactical level, this team has a really low floor, and I just don't see it. I didn't buy in it when I saw the sign-ins, and I'm sad that I'm being proved right, but I'm also glad I'm being proved right because it kind of
Mm.
yeah.
Well, my opinion on this team is I don't think they've done enough in terms of the changes. I feel like they've gone half in, half out with the changes. You bring in Fallen, you're doing that same stupid thing that Liquid did, which you bring in Fallen, then you try this sort of hybrid IGL thing. If you bring in Fallen, just let him call. And you clearly don't actually like the way that you're playing anymore because you made a playstyle change before the Paris Major. And, from the body language and getting to see the players, Art was not happy at that event. Kesarado was not happy. His performances have been really, really bad recently. And obviously, the passing of his father, that's obviously going to play a big factor, and commiserations to him. But the other factor is, Yuri had his worst ever LAN performance at the Paris Major in the Challenger stage, or the stage that they came in on. So this is a team that I think actually have a lot of cool pieces, but I don't think they've done enough. I think they're keeping a little bit too much of the old Furia and trying to move to the next stage, but are scared to take that full leap. I think if you're buying Fallen for so much money, you got to just fully commit to that project. You bring in Cello, you got Fallen, that's sick. Yuri, Kesarado, Fallen, and Cello, perfect. I think if you want to get rid of your coaching just for the fact that, Guerry's been there for a long time, you're going to make a play style change. Maybe you want some fresh ideas, some fresh minds. You bring in a new IGL, maybe even bring Zach over from Imperial, and you get rid of Art because you brought in Fallen, and you just enter the next era of Brazilian CS for Furia. I feel like there's two different polar opposite teams right now inside of Furia, and it's not working, and I don't think it will work. And I think eventually down the line, you're going to have to make that change of Art and Guerry out, or Kesarado will eventually have enough and realize he's going to do the Harry Kane, and he's not going to want to waste his time winning no trophies. He's going to go somewhere else. And I feel like this is what's going to happen here. I feel like this is inevitable for Furia. So I don't know why they're wasting time. Just do it now and then be in a position to compete at the start of CS2 instead of wasting the end of Go and wasting the start of CS2 with this idea that you can combine the two play styles, which you just can't.
Worked out really well for Harry Kane.
I've already kind of
Yeah, I mean, Kane started on the bench when they got into a trophy game. So.
I don't care.
Yeah,
it's
and
funny.
they also lost that. So
Yeah, and they lost. They got
the Kane effect in full swing.
Yeah.
I've already come through my thoughts a little bit. I think the reason why I was literally saying I think they're the worst coach team we have right now is just because like Guerry came into this team when Art came into the team in 2018, ages ago at this point, and they've tried to adapt their play style over time, and I just don't think Guerry's the right guy to help that happen. I keep seeing missed nades on this team, which I can't handle. I can't handle missed smokes anymore in this day and age. Like, someone's got to tell them that's not okay. There is, I guess, that is the one question in my mind, though, is like, is it actually a coaching thing, or is it just Art being like, I need to do my plays? Because you see that Art still is trying to do his like solo plays. It's almost like he has to do a certain amount of them, and it just doesn't make sense at all when they're playing with this system. So it's this really weird scenario. I think Dinko's kind of put the nail on the head there by saying like you probably should have just kept someone like Drop. I actually think Drop would have worked way better in a more structured team because I just think he wasn't given the tools to actually succeed, and he just lost his confidence over time on the old Furia roster. I actually think he was a pretty smart player and could sometimes catch opponents off guard, but you saw at the major, especially that Paris major, like they did not know how to play slow at all. And whether that's Guerry not being able to coach that way or Art not being able to take in the coaching, whatever it is, clearly something needed to happen there, and it hasn't. And now you're left with this like Frankenstein's mess of a roster, sadly.
I almost wonder if they are the sort of victim of business and in terms of time period that you have to make all of these business deals. And I feel like maybe they even ran out of time before roster lock, before they could secure some of the deals they wanted. I'm sure Caserato had some interest from bigger organizations for sure when they realized that maybe there's a dead Furia line there. Maybe you can pick off pieces of it, and Caserato certainly would be the first choice. So I definitely assume there's a lot of options that Caserato is probably exploring. Maybe some of those didn't come to fruition. You're looking at a team here that maybe wanted some extra changes, but either didn't have the capital to do it or didn't have the time to secure those deals and get it through, because it seemed like Fallen's move took a lot of cash and it took a lot of time and focus and resources. So it's not like you didn't even really know if you're gonna get Fallen towards the end. So you have an idea of what you would want with Fallen, but first you need to secure him, and then you realize, okay, that took the whole player break, that took the whole transfer window, and now we have a team that doesn't really make sense yet. But it's a move or two away from making sense, and I don't think they had the time, probably nor the resources to make a big move like that happen, because getting Fallen is expensive.
I also think, just quickly, that, like, at least in my head, Art is kind of the face of Furia at this point. I think he's the first guy
I think
you think of.
Caserato now for me is the face of Furia.
Interesting. You
Because
see,
even at the Rio Major, they're all chanting Caserato, Caserato.
Sure,
Art didn't really have that same sort of cult following among the Brazilians for me.
Okay, fair. I feel like maybe, at least to me, it kind of feels like the organization, like, really like Art. That's the vibe I kind of get, but hard to know from the outside.
It feels really odd still to see Fallen under the Furia banner though. Like I'm still not familiarized with it.
Well, you
and I
won't see
don't
him
know if
much.
I will be. I think it's going to take some time. Well, if you think about the price tag that was attached to him, Monazy was like 100 grand cheaper than that. And I understand that in Europe, if you're going for a European mix, there's a lot more like prodigy talent that you could look at to pick up. Maybe not so much in Brazil. I don't think it's such a mess over there in terms of the teams. We've spoken about this on podcasts before, where players just seem to transfer between teams constantly until they find something that works to play in their leagues.
Honestly, though, I think all of the businesses in Brazil will talk about the extra fee you have. Brazilian
Yeah.
prices are different to the rest of the world in terms of the
They are
prices
wild.
because of the contract law. It's insane, right? Everything has like a huge markup. So Fallen's price probably was cheap in comparison to what he maybe could have cost in Brazil. And when you're picking up Fallen, you're picking up the godfather of Brazilian CS. So there's a lot of things that come with Fallen that aren't just the Counter-Strike. He's got huge social media following, huge fan base in Brazil. You can sell more jerseys, you can do meetups, get more sponsors for your business. So there's a lot more that comes with Fallen, and I think they probably felt like the trade-off for the price was good enough. And also, definitely still capable of playing good CS. So I think it's a overall good move for Furia, just not big enough of a move.
Do you think maybe they're looking like longer term? They were like, okay, look, this transition from maybe Go into CS2 is not where we want to truly compete. So let's make sure we lock down Fallen. We've locked down Cello as well. And then maybe when CS2 comes around and we get the next kind of transfer period, that's where we actually move some of the deadwood out of Furia. Maybe that was always the game plan. I don't know. I'm only speculating. But potentially where there's not as much, obviously there is kind of emphasis on finishing well towards the end of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but if every one of these organizations is planning ahead for CS2, then maybe they're looking a little bit later down the line rather than right now.
Honestly, it feels like CS:GO is over. Like, there's nothing really spectacular left in the calendar anymore, right? You got got IEM Sydney, you got Gamers8, you got Blast, but there's nothing that really has that huge prestige like a Major or Cologne or Katowice anymore, right? So I think, yeah, if you're looking at that mentality and you're willing to sacrifice your Cologne performance, then sure, at this point, there isn't really too much left in CSGO to win. I don't think anybody's going to cry if they don't win IEM Sydney. So I feel like, yeah, that definitely could be a possibility. And even if it isn't in their heads right now, it probably will be the outcome for Furia.
I also think that from their perspective, there wasn't that much. I mean, they probably thought this was going to perform a lot better, like out of the gate, a lot better than not making it through the playing stage. But in terms of how they were performing, there's not really that much that they have to meet to play on the same level. They've somehow managed to go under it, which is a big surprise for me. But there wasn't that much for them to actually meet in terms of like where Fury were already placing at tournaments. So I don't think it was that big a loss anyway for them.
Yeah, It's also just, I think the problem I have with like the whole going for CS2 thing is like the problems this team has like are so hard to fix with this lineup. I guess maybe you're saying they like make a roster move once CS2 comes around, but then
Yeah. So I don't know.
that still feels like a bit of a
Maybe
waste, you know?
I agree, but maybe the idea is like, look, prioritize Fallen. As Dinko said, like it took a while to actually get that over the line. So
Sure.
maybe the plan was always we want to make more roster changes, and then they couldn't because of the time. So they just go, oh, screw it, we'll just use this for now, and then when CS2 comes out, we'll make some proper changes. But I agree, I don't think it's a good idea, but I think maybe that's what they're looking at.
So yeah, Furia, I think we all seem a bit disappointed in how they've come out of the gate. But a team that have done quite well out of the gate is BetBoom. What have you guys thought of those guys so far?
I'm excited for that team. I think, looking at the off season, I was sort of wondering where Zorte was. Why is he not sort of rumored to be going to any of these big teams, considering his performance at the major and all the hype around him and the excitement? But I think this actually makes a lot of sense. I think it was really difficult, likely very difficult to make a deal with Forza, because we know that similar to Brazil, Forza have had a history of really large buyouts. And doing business with an organization in Russia is very difficult right now, obviously. And so probably was quite difficult logistically to get Zorte into one of these teams. So I think an organization like BetBoom that have shown that they are capable of making rosters that go deep in other esports tournaments like Dota, they did really well at the international, I believe. So this is a team that have a lot of money in behind them as well, and can throw it into a roster from the region, and it's easier for them to assemble this team. And I think, considering all of the other problems and the external factors of trying to get Zorte into a different team outside of his region, I think this is probably one of the best teams they could have made. And I'm excited to see Nafany in a different environment where he hasn't grown up with these players and been in the same team since Copenhagen Games 2019. Remember that one, Hawkem? And so now we're looking at Nafany maybe getting to show his leadership around different players. And I'm excited to see it's a sort of second chance for him.
Yeah, I think the challenges that they've got coming into the closed qualifier for IEM Sydney, you've got NIP, Apex, 9, OG, and then the other teams that qualified, 1 win, Victory Zigzag. So yeah, I think that they definitely got a good chance there, because a lot of those teams haven't looked great in their opening fixtures. I mean, we saw NIP looking pretty weak when coming out the gate after a pretty good blast event. So they definitely have a good chance there. And say I like a lot of their changes. We spoke about them on the last podcast. So yeah, BetBoom I think are looking good. And another team that I want to talk about coming out of the NA qualifier, because there's no South America one. I believe the reason for that is because Rio didn't have an Oceania qualifier, so they've kind of switched that around for this one. But EG were playing. They lost to Forsaken, a team with Stanislaw. Are we just at a point now where EG are done? I mean, I think we were very much in that mindset. They took a new roster on board. Oh, I say a new roster. They changed a bunch of players. Automatic still in the lineup. Is there any thoughts on EG, or are we still just in the same boat of, they're EG?
Yeah, there's a couple of thoughts on EG, and it's I think it's quite difficult for them, honestly, because they're in a world where the roster they tried to make, I think it was better, but obviously it wasn't anything special. Probably would have just been like another OG kind of vibe. You pick up just a bunch of random players and you put them into an organization. At least if you hold on to your North American identity, you're at least able to say that you're trying to help your own region. Even if you aren't performing very well, you're keeping these players in a contract. You're looking to try and develop some of these players and sending them out to bigger events. I have zero expectations for EG to be a team that actually wins anything. And I no longer care now with the Valve ruling coming in with the franchise teams. I think that was the main thing everybody didn't like, was the fact that EG had money, got themselves into these sort of partner positions, and then turned up to every event with the terrible team. Now you're going to have to be EG, and you're going to have to actually work at getting into these events. And that will remove every issue I have with them. If you want to have a bad team and you're not going to events, sick. And that's what matters. And or if you want to go to events, now you have to get a good team. And obviously those rules kick in a few years, but at least we're going to see the future of EG, whether they're really all about building up their North American scene, or if they're there just to have a partner spot. And I hope that they stick around, actually. So that's where I'm at with VG.
Yeah, I don't know. There's there's not much more to say. I mean, I guess the only thing I will say is I actually think Junior is like good at this level. I think he was like actually a good player to get on this lineup, but I don't know what else to say. I guess also like Automatic. What a depressing like return to CS he's had. Like he should have done so much more. He's been so solid for so long, and he's just been on this team. Like his biggest success was back when he was with Gen G. Probably, I think they won like a DreamHack Open. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
when he was on
DreamHack
that
Anaheim.
lineup.
It was the last LAN before the pandemic, and everything went online.
Who was even
Yeah.
on that Gen G team? Was that
Bentet
Som?
was on that team. I think it
Som?
was
it
was Daps on it as
and
well,
other-
maybe.
Yeah, Daps.
Was that when Som was still there? as
Yeah,
well?
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
and they had
so.
Bentet. I feel bad
Also-
for Bentet as well. That's a sad career, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That is
Yeah.
true. Also, no, I've just opened up Automatic's like page, and it's like, oh my god, just the placements are just they're so sad. Like, you know how it does it like on a color grading system, like it's like yellow if you're first and like dark blue if you're last, and it's just different shades of dark blue across his whole
Well,
history.
that adds up. He's on the EG branding, so it's,
Exactly,
they're pretty
yeah,
consistent
exactly.
across the board.
I imagine it was quite a good feeling for Stanislaw and Wiz to take them out with that qualifier to get themselves into the NA closed qualifier as well. It's always good when you see those kind of
Yeah.
stories. The
This is so
go ahead,
rough.
Dinko.
I have another comparison. That one. Brandon obviously watches football in the UK, so
Yeah. Okay.
do you
what
think
we got?
Brandon? They're part
Oh,
owned by
no.
Wolves, right? Do you feel like there's some
Yeah.
sort of parallel to be drawn between the two teams' performances, maybe?
Not with Wolves. Like,
I mean, Wolves are pretty awful right now. I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
say.
they
that's what
are.
I mean.
They're,
Like,
they're,
so
all, they're
pretty
awful. They're
consistent.
awful right. Yeah, they're awful right now. But like Wolves went through a period where they were like competing to potentially get into Europe like a couple of seasons ago. Were EG doing that?
So
No.
did EG. I mean, let me
Where? No,
remind you
like-
of the Stanislaw era that lasted a few tournaments, my friend. That was a great time.
Yeah.
Their time in the sun.
No, I don't think
New
you
York.
you can compare.
We're still yet to
EG
see Wolves actually play their
Wolves.
opening game.
True.
Yeah,
They're
that's-
playing
that's true.
Manchester, right?
Yeah,
United.
later
Yeah.
tonight.
No, that's
so-
gonna be good. We'll see. That really is an indication of how EG season will go if they,
Yeah.
So keep an eye on that one.
It's like the
did
the
confuse me when I
Zaibu
saw the
air
sponsorship
quality,
of
and then the EG
Well, it adds up
parallel
because the other team that
between
has a
Wolves
football
doing
link
well.
is FaZe and Man City, and they won the Intel Grand Slam. So I'm thinking there's some sort of science here.
Maybe you'll have to produce like a whole document on this, Dinko.
Yeah, my thesis.
Yeah. The other team that were quite disappointing in the close qualifier, VP, they lost to a team called Thunder Flash. I've never heard of any of the players on that roster. I don't know if anyone.
I
even
know
knows
Thunder
of the roster.
Flash.
Nope.
Okay. Is there anything to say about them, Brandon?
They shouldn't have beaten VP.
Like, should. Okay. I think that's the main takeaway.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit worrying considering VP.
It's
Playing
VP are
FaZe
really
and
weird
everything
too.
else.
I don't actually
it's
know
VP,
how
man.
they do business. Like, what Kickert's on the transfer list, but they're playing with him instead of Norbert. Like, what is actually happening with VP? I actually just don't understand. Just as much as I don't understand how James calls or thinks about the game, I don't understand the business logic here either. So yeah, I'm just seeing a world in which VP their peak is winning majors, and they could probably get to that form pretty quick out of nowhere, and then they can just drop off in the next game. It's really weird to watch VP. I have zero expectations for them coming into this year. I'm along for that roller coaster, I think.
I'll tell you what though, I'm really
Hey.
excited to see them knock out FaZe on Thursday because
I
that'll
know
be.
they're gonna do it.
Oh,
I
we're going for
really
the
feel like they
bracket.
will just out of left field, just bang them out.
Didn't,
I don't know why.
Didn't VP
Just
go
feel-
out to Buenos Aires and play in Argentina against 9Z?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they did.
that was weird.
Yeah,
That was crazy. It was like a
They got-
massive prize pool.
they got invited out, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
they owned them as well. Like it wasn't close at all.
Yeah, and the social
Was-
media manager had absolutely no chill from what I remember. Like, they were just straight up insulting 9Z during these. Like, it
Oh
wasn't even
my
playful banter. I don't know if it was lost in communication, but it was like, haha, your team are awful. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, straight up, that's what they were saying. There was no sort of tact in it whatsoever.
I think the weird part about that for me is that hadn't they just beaten them like twice at IEM Katowice Challenger? I think if you're going to invite a team out, maybe not the one that's just beaten 9Z twice.
Yeah, they did beat him at Challenger. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
This is also the other thing with VP though, because I'm pretty sure prior to that Challenger Katowice, they'd done nothing. I think they'd even I think they'd lost a BO3 against one win online like a month before, and then they came into that event and they beat Ents and won the whole thing.
What
so-
happened? The story there is, remember the RMRs that happened before
Yeah.
this, and then they had a massive
yeah.
off season, and everybody's anticipating what move VP are going to make, and they turn up to the event with the exact same team. You had months
funny.
upon months, and you've come with the same team, and they won the event. This is the problem with VP. They're just so, I don't get them in any way, shape, or form.
Even though
think,
9Z
if
lost, even though 9Z lost against VP, they still got 50k for that BO3. So I feel like they'll be not too not they won't mind too much about the Twitter slander. So
Not bad.
and that was just a 2-team event, right? It was
It's just a
yeah,
show
it was
match,
just
yeah.
it was just them. Yeah.
50k.
It reminds me of that E-League Clash for Cash, which VP also played in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I need to get involved in some of these tournaments. 50k invite just to lose. That's
And you
that's
don't
like
even have to
similar
travel because it was at a lot of their home country, right? So
It sounds similar to a lot of like the like MMA, UFC type thing deals where you lose and you get millions upon millions just to get your face punched in.
yep.
Yeah, not a bad life. I mean, other than the
I don't know. I've
the
had my
follow-up effects of
face
that.
punched in, but
This is the moneymaker, right?
Yeah. If there's no other teams that you guys want to mention in these close qualifiers, then we'll move on to talk about Gamers8 and go through the bracket.
I'm ready for Gamers8. Bring me that single
Yes.
You
limb.
ready?
Bring me that.
Okay.
You
so-
can't tell me this isn't an event where VP will have a deep run. You can't tell me.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which is why they
So-
will.
This bracket, we're doing it on Pickstop, just the easiest way. There's no affiliation there.
Oh god, I
it
can't
just
see
seems to
that.
be
Hang
the
on.
easiest way to actually look at this.
Oh,
So,
yeah, that's better.
We'll
Thank
go
you.
just from each of the rounds, and then yeah, we'll see what we predict. This does have a system where you pick a 2-0 and a 2-1, so we can go into a bit more detail. The first matchup we're looking at is Heroic and Falcons. So if anyone wants to kick us off on that one.
2-0 heroic.
Really?
Yeah.
No, just kidding. Yeah, it should be.
Wow.
But like, it could be 2-1. Like Heroic
How?
was shaky as hell at Cologne in the group stages, man.
Yeah,
They
that's
lost against
the one.
Mongols.
That is the one time that you've ever seen heroic do that. Do you reckon that's gonna be a consistent thing? Do you reckon they're gonna really like come out again?
I think they're genuinely. I think they were like worse right now than I've seen them in
Yeah,
for a long,
I agree.
long time.
I agree. I think Heroic are looking far worse than we've seen them in a long time. And I think it's probably the realization that shit, we didn't win anything. Like we've made it to so many finals, we've made it to so many playoffs, yet we have never won it really. We won a couple of smaller blast tournaments, but we never won one of those prestigious ones. Never won the major. Didn't win Cologne. Didn't win Katowice. We went to the final Katowice, was the playoffs in Cologne, and I feel like they're just a little deflated. And even though, usually Kading does these loser interviews where he's still very positive about the team and his teammates. If you listen to his loser interview in Cologne, he doesn't really have that same sort of attitude. He's talking about it's not acceptable to lose to this team today. We have a team that I don't know what's happening. We can't lose to these guys in the playoffs. And it's true. I feel like they're weaker than they ever have been in a long time. And I feel like against Falcons, maybe they lose a map, but they still should get through that game.
Yeah, I don't mind doing 2-0 or 2-1 here. The thing is, like, Falcons, actually, the lineup on paper looks like it should be decent, but I don't think they've really played much at all. So
They're not
I
getting a
assume
map.
They're going to take a while to get
They're
up to
not.
speed.
They're not getting a map.
You don't think so?
No.
Oh, mate, MHL is going to hard carry at least
Yeah.
one map.
Boros is coming out
Boros in there.
swinging.
Exactly, mate.
Yeah, I think the lineup on paper, like you say, it actually looks pretty good. I was excited when I saw this team and was like, maybe they can compete, but they've just not done it yet. So yeah, I'm happy to say too. I think I agree with you. Heroic have looked a bit weaker since, and they said it was something to do with like trying to adapt to a new play style so they can like play better against these more chaotic opponents. I don't know how much of that is true.
Well, chaos
that was
is
just kind of their
Boros, right?
excuse.
So, because I don't know, that's going to be interesting. That's a real test in that opening game. And
I just don't
just-
see why they would try and change it. Like, why would you try and change a play style that is working?
That's
I
the
don't
thing,
think-
Yeah, they
I
were,
don't-
they were
I
always
don't-
winning
I don't
against these
think-
chaotic teams.
I don't think they were changing it. I think that was maybe just a
I think it
let's
was
say
cap.
It
this.
was straight up
yeah.
cap. But I think there is a world in which Falcons win this because, guys, there's one thing we're not considering. This isn't a group stage. We're
what?
straight into the playoffs. It's a playoff-only tournament.
Oh no!
So Heroic are two different teams. You know, group stage, they're playing against a weaker opponent. They usually get through that game with ease. We're going right into the playoffs. You don't have a group stage here. This is Heroic going to be in full choke mode.
The other
This
way
is
you
a
can look at
joke.
this is they haven't got to qualify for a playoffs either. So they could be looking at this whole as one big group.
No, this is a playoff.
No
Once the
qualification.
words quarterfinals, semifinals, grand final enter the brains of these Heroic players, something happens and they just have a mental switch.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And
if we
that's
go-
not now. That's the round of 16. So they're going to
Yeah.
make it through to at least the quarterfinal.
So they make it through here, and then they probably lose to
Gamer Legion again.
just like they did at the major. Yeah.
Loki, listen.
Okay, are we
we'll
agreeing
see.
2-0 or 2-1?
2-1 for me, but
Oh,
I
it's
vote
it's
2-1.
such
I
a
vote
it's
2-1.
such a
You're
joke
outvoted.
if you're
You're
putting
outvoted.
2-1. There's no
You're outvoted.
Yeah, we'll
way.
go. Well, the
They
Guess
lost
has the
16-5
bigger
to
veto
ITB
over us.
last week.
it's ITB are a
Yeah,
fantastic
T-Bricks are
team.
great, man.
Moving on, Apex versus Gamer Legion.
Apex Game Legion.
Two major playoff teams that have lost some of their players, their best players, in fact.
I think for me, just initially, like Game Legion look much better than Apex have. Apex, I mean, they've been tweeting quite a lot saying that they know their results have been extremely disappointing and it's just something that's going to improve. And I just don't think they've had enough time from when they've been saying that kind of stuff to have improved. So I think Game Legion should take this, maybe 2-1.
It's so mad because Apex should be way better, but
I
somehow
agree.
Gamer Legion were actually like pretty good at.
I don't.
Yeah,
I was
I
actually really
completely
surprised
agree.
at how good Gamer Legion were. I thought they were going to fall off the face of the earth with no Shuei.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all did.
But they really stepped up. Then the question becomes, is that going to be consistent? I believe more in the consistency and the steady growth of Apex rather than Gamer Legion. I think the logic strikes out there. So I feel like Apex, they're going to win this 2-1. And it's going to be really close. It's going to be disgusting. And it's going to be gross. But they're going to win 2-1.
Okay, we've got two different opinions so far.
I think I'm with Dinko. I just think like Gamer Legion, they looked surprisingly good, but they did have like a somewhat easy run, you could say. Like they beat the Mongols and Fnatic. I mean, New Look Fnatic don't look that great. I just think Apex should have like a bit more like structure in general. I actually think Kicksan's a pretty good IGL, so I'd give this slight edge to Apex, but this is very close.
Brandon, have you recovered from the
Legion.
Falcons winning a map yet?
Brandon.
No, like I also just disagree with you here. I think Gamer Legion are going to beat them 2-1. So
Ooh, okay.
I think
Well, this
I think
time we're a
the
bit split,
pieces.
so
I think
I
the
don't
pieces on
mind going
Gamer
with
Legion are
Brandon on this
better, and I feel like Apex's recent results have just been shocking, and I feel like it's actually just taken a while to integrate Sasanito into this team because he's a different player compared to JL, and it's going to take him time. Also, he's been standing in on international teams, but I don't know what his experience is like playing in international teams, and has no experience really at tier 1. So
Mhm.
I
think
just
the sort of
I think
extent of
Gamer-
what people seen him was when he was at Pro League, right, with the Americans team.
Yeah.
I can't remember their name at this point.
exactly,
ATK.
yeah.
Yeah, ATK, yeah. So that was kind of like the extent of his experience recently, I suppose.
Yeah. So I don't know. For me, I think Apex right now is not as good as Gamer Legion, but I think in the future, with like a couple more months and events, I think they'll be much better than Gamer Legion. But right now, I think Gamer Legion take it 2-1.
Oh no, I'm happy to go with Gamer Legion.
Yeah, I don't
I
think it
agree.
really matters. Both of them are losing to Heroic realistically in the next round. So
Are
I
they
believe-
now? Well, but
Hell yeah.
the
It's gonna be
Falcons
2-0
nearly
the whole
beat
way from this point
Heroic.
for Heroic.
Okay, all right.
They do have the easiest run for the
They
past
do,
two
and I
games at
made a tweet
least.
about the sort of the event and the carnage that might happen based on the fact that it is single elimination. And the general consensus in the community and the fan base is that how do Heroic keep getting these easy runs? And they just have a high seed. I mean, they're probably one of the weakest top one, like number one teams you've had in the world because they're just so damn consistent at getting to finals, getting to playoffs that they've managed to wrangle themselves enough ranking points to maintain the top one spot for a long period of time. So they're always going to have like a decently high seed coming into these events. And there's a reason for that. The problem is just getting that sort of final hurdle. I don't necessarily disagree with Heroic having a nice, easier run. But when you look at some of the teams down here that have some crazy difficult runs, Heroic have the perfect opportunity to get to the grand final, it feels like, compared to some of the other squads.
Yeah, I mean, besides Vitality, from the start of the year up until now, no one's been consistent in winning tournaments. I think Vitality the only team that have won 2
No,
tournaments
G2 won
besides G2 now.
Katowice and Cologne. So
Yeah,
it's
G-
only
yeah.
G2 and Vitality that have won multiple tournaments. And FaZe have won one. I think we've had, was it five different teams so far this year winning titles. So yeah, it's been pretty. And the only two teams that have been able to win multiple titles is Vitality and G2. So yeah, I think it's definitely really up in the air as to where the last two trophies are going to go.
Yeah, I think up until Cologne happened, it was very much a discussion of like, well, Heroic have made many playoff appearances, so and most of the other teams haven't played very well, so it's difficult not to see them either 2 or even number 1. So I think that's why that they're getting these seedings, and yeah, say you can't really fault them for being in that position. But next game we got is C9 Fnatic, a rematch of their opening fixture at Cologne. Are we on the Axel train now? He's come back into the roster. Do you think it's going to be a much easier matchup for C9?
I mean, you'd hope so. I do think. I just don't really see what edge Fnatic have. I don't know like what one thing I could look at and say, yeah, Fnatic have this that's better than Cloud9. Maybe like they're a little more up to speed because they actually got to play more at Cologne, but like I do just think Cloud9 should have this. Maybe 2-1, but
Yeah. Pretty much the same, right? I feel like because you've now got Axel starting in the tournament from the beginning, that's just going to help a lot more. You could see that Buster, whilst he did get Cloud9 into playoffs, he was looking clearly unsettled and like he wasn't ready to play that event at all. So I like the Fnatic team. I just don't think they're going to beat Cloud9 this time.
This is going to be pretty clear cut. I think 2-0 for Cloud9.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Fnatic looked kind of exciting in their opening games. We know Mezzi being able to be freed up and unshackled by the burden of in-game leadership, but I don't think, as Hawk is saying, they have enough. And I don't think that, like you were saying, Hawk, they have anything that you would say even matches or is better than Cloud9. Cloud9 is better in every single point. Perhaps maybe the IGL experience, maybe. That's probably something Fnatic might have a little bit more of.
Yeah, I think pound for pound, there is not really a world where they can match up. I mean, you're completely right on that, Dinko. So, yeah, C9, 2-0. There's definitely a chance that Fnatic can squeeze a map out. Just maybe if someone has a bit of a slow start, like we saw in the playoffs. Hobbit had an incredible group stage and then came in quite slow in the opening game that they had, or the only game that they had. But I think the signs that we saw from them against Vitality are very promising. I mean, we saw Shiro play almost an entire T-side Inferno without an AWP, and still he looked unbelievably scary. So I'm very excited for what this team is going to become. And Liquid team, I don't even know where to place right now, and ENCE.
Yeah, Liquid ENCE. What an opening game in this tournament, and you would have to believe, based on recent performances, ENCE should win this. And I'm gonna have to side with that as well. I feel like there might be a map drop just from the fact that you're traveling out to Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of pressure on knowing that if you lose the game, you're going out. So I think maybe Liquid will win a map here, but I feel like ENCE should win this series 2-1 and edge it out to go up against Cloud9. I think ENCE's performances lately have just been so good. And I've been really impressed with the fact that they've come back from Dallas out of the player break and been able to continue that kind of performance and get to the final of a tournament like Cologne. It's not it's one of the most difficult things in Counter-Strike World to get to a final of Cologne, and they did it. So I feel like there's even room for improvement. Listening to a lot of the interviews from the players saying that we're playing better in Dallas than we were in Cologne in terms of our communication, and there's definitely a level we can get to. And so I feel like Ants should win this one going up against Liquid, and it's going to be a tough one to call though.
Oh, mate, the in-game leader difference in this matchup. You've literally got the best in-game leader in the world, Snappy, up against Yakindar. Like,
The
oh
best
my
in-game
God,
leader
this
in
is
the
just
world.
so free. Best in-game leader in the world.
Isn't even
Snappy.
the best in-game leader in Denmark, mate. What are you talking about? This is
Okay, I was trying to bait. I was trying to bait a more heated reaction. Snappy though is actually sick. Like, he's so sick as an in-game leader. So I think that'll be the main difference here. Like, Snappy's very, very good at conditioning opponents and knowing when to go for his like fast plays out of spawn and his slower ones. And I don't think Liquid can handle that. I don't think they'll know what's going on. Snappy's going to be slapping them from all sides of the face. They're going to be like, what's happening, man? Easy.
I think the other thing with this matchup is the Ents have just come out of playing in an arena, and Liquid, I don't know how much experience Rainmaker has, but I doubt it's very much, if any. So I definitely think that Ents are more prepared going into this, especially because Liquid haven't played since that play-in stage where they didn't make it through. So yeah, I think Ents for me as well. How about you, Brandon?
Yeah, but I mean, pretty much the same thoughts, right? And if people can no longer be like sleeping on this Ents team, so I think it. I feel like Ents are a team that people always just go like, "Oh, yeah, well, they might do well, but who knows?" And then they always win. So I think that they'll probably go 2-1. I don't know about 2-0, but they'll definitely win the series.
Yeah, I'm saying this while wearing a Team Liquid hoodie. But I've been really kind of disappointed with Team Liquid so far. I just don't know how much better they can. Well, they definitely have to get better. I just don't know where they're gonna go from here, though, because the Rainmaker move, obviously, they've seen something in him, but it hasn't really transitioned too well, has he? You know, there's been a lot of really weak performances coming in. I gotta believe it to some extent in Yakindar's ability to get better as an in-game leader, but I feel like it's a really, really long-term project with this team, and I don't think right now they're ready. So it's gonna be a while.
I still don't think you should have your Kinder IGL in. I just don't.
That's the whole point of the project, unfortunately. But I agree with you.
But you're limiting that guy's potential so much. And
but I think
understand
it's himself
if it's his
doing
decision.
It's not Liquid deciding.
Yeah, no, I know.
Himself,
I understand it's his decision, but I just don't agree with it at all. I just feel like he'd be so much better placed if he was just focusing on his crosshair. It's a frustrating one.
The problem is as well is like he isn't the one on this roster that's playing particularly bad either. So it's then the calls, isn't it? That you can't really look elsewhere if he's not having performance issues. So yeah, I think Daps is quite good to have behind him as well as one of NA's probably best callers.
Liquid,
you know,
I agree. I don't know. I don't know with that statement though, because Liquid and Daps, sure, Daps has accomplished a lot in his career in NA. You've now got a primarily EU Liquid. I feel like you need an EU coach.
Well, he took a lot of the players from EG. I say they weren't all EU. You had Cirque on the lineup, but he played a lot in international events and to quite good placements.
I think you have heard a lot of interviews with Dapp saying that he's learned from the European players coming in, and I think you're going to have a very different playstyle coming out of where these guys are playing from, and I think you're going to learn a lot about how they view the game in comparison to the North American style. So I think it will take some time trying to figure out, the culture of the team. You've just had a North American team for a very long time with NAF and OC playing in these North American sides. Particularly OC, I think, will be the player that transitions the hardest, because NAF has had some time with Renegades, right? He spends a lot of time in EU for personal reasons. So I think right now, the sort of culture that you're going to have to build within this team is not going to be easy. And getting people to believe in your project is going to take some time as well. Because I don't think when you have a brand like Team Liquid, and you could have gone so many other ways with this, right? You could have picked up Caserado, you could have got these players in and made a superstar squad. A lot of people want to play under the Team Liquid banner, and you've given the reins over. You've gotten rid of your franchise player release. You've given everything on over, including your North American status as a team, to the Yekindar. There's a lot of faith being put in this guy to build this team. So there's going to be some pressure on him. There's going to be pressure to perform relatively quickly. And I think from the org's perspective as well, they're going to have to deal with that outside pressure, the fans who have a huge expectation of what Team Liquid means and what they want out of that team. And I don't think the fans will be as patient or as lenient on players like Rainwaker if it takes a long time for them to get good.
Yeah, it is kind of mad if you think about it. I've brought this up before too. Like the fact that they stuck with Elige for so long, and some of the players they like. Realistically, there was probably a period of time where they could have chose between like Twist and Elige. Like that feels like something that sort of could have happened, but they were always giving Elige more space when he was at his best, which made sense because he was sick. But then you end up like losing Elige. It's a really big call to make. He was their franchise player for so long, and like if this goes wrong, I don't know, man. We'll see where this goes going forward. This is a really interesting one.
Do you think there's also a lot of time for them to fix any of the problems that like this has? If it does go wrong, as you say, that between now and the time that CS2 actually releases, that they could just go and kind of not scrap the whole project, but replace a fair few players, get Yekindar back out of that role. Do you think there's enough time for them to be
I just
doing
feel
that?
like if you commit to this, you commit to it for like at least 6
you have
months,
to.
you know, and yeah,
Longer. It
it's
has
always
to be
going to take
longer
a
than
while
that.
to work. Yeah.
But for this
So,
tough one.
instance right now, ENCE is winning the series 2-1.
Yeah, for sure.
2-1, did you say?
Yeah.
You agree with
I
that?
think it depends. I don't know. I just feel like it's you made the travel point. I was gonna say 2-0, but I actually agree with you, and I feel like look, it's the first game of the event, and sometimes start off a little bit slow. So I'd say 2-1's
Yeah, okay.
reasonable.
I'll go 2-1 as well. Hence winning it.
I don't mind 2-1. Yeah.
I think the other thing is, while ENCE were playing in the playoffs, Liquid probably had more time to look at this matchup and prepare for it as well. So there's also that to it. And FaZe VP, we have mentioned this matchup already. I am also in a boat where I'm very scared that VP might actually take this. I don't know what it is, but I see VP and they would just worry me.
Yeah, they always worry me as well. You know, knowing that they're going to be at the event worries me because but the great thing is it's like single elimination. And that for me is exciting. You've got one of the most entertaining teams in the world. Absolutely. FaZe Clan have played in some of the most memorable and exciting matches. They've got some of the greatest, most exciting, explosive talent on their team. And they're going up against the sort of antithesis of that. It's Virtus.pro with the slowest team, least entertaining, least memorable. And I think for me, this is a team that can sometimes... they're a little bit like a Komodo dragon VP. I feel like sometimes they can infect their opponent and slowly watch them die and be poisoned by the slow methodical play style. And sometimes it's effective enough to get a win, but I just can't believe right now that this Virtus.pro is going to beat FaZe Clan. I have to believe in FaZe winning this game. And I'm going to say 2-0 because that's the reality that I want to see.
Mate, I actually think VP win this. I genuinely
There we
do.
go.
I just
We
do.
casted far too much of VP over the years, Alex. It's like we just know what to expect. I remember we did this like insane game back in Cologne 2021, I believe it was, where it was the return to LAN, and we had NIP were playing against Liquid, I believe, or something along those lines. Liquid Balance, I think it was, and they had this crazy game. It was overtime after overtime, and it went to I think it was midnight. We had a VP game starting, and I vividly remember walking outside in the sun just coming up as we leave the studio. So I think that's been burned into the mind of Alex, and you got to take that sort of experience to the pinch of salt as well.
There had to be an overpass in there as well. I remember you're like,
Oh,
oh,
there had to
god,
be.
it's so late, and now we've got overpass. It's gonna be long rounds. But no, like I actually just think so. I think also it was probably because I casted Challenger Katowice that makes me like realize for whatever reason VP seem to come into lands like this and just perform. Like the way they beat ENCE there, honestly looked so impressive. Like, Jame was just doing exactly the same sort of things you're used to seeing from him. And the only thing I will say is that I don't think FaZe's like coordination looked that good at Cologne. And that's the sort of thing that VP can weirdly get at you at. So, like, I mean, this is like probably the hardest matchup to predict because VP, we just literally have no clue what to expect. But my gut tells me VP are going to do it.
See, my worrying thing is like FaZe. We talked about Heroic being a group stage team. FaZe are the opposite, right? They're the playoff team. There is no procrastinating here, as Maui would bring up, right? This is a team that if you lose this game, you're out of the tournament. There's nothing to save you. And FaZe, for me, when they are up against the wall, when they have only one chance left, they just play the best CS, right? They realize, for example, at the RMR when they had that last chance run. They played insane CS where they went into the gauntlet against Cloud9 and they pull these comebacks and it feels like when they realize there's one opportunity left, they just pull it off.
Yeah, definitely feel like they need something to play for.
Yeah, Brandon.
Wow.
There we go.
Non-believers.
Yes, Brandon. That's what I like to see.
Right.
I don't. No, Hawker. I just don't think Mir's good enough, man. I just don't think that. There is, especially with
who
like
knows
this...
what team they're coming up with, Brandon, though. That
exactly, right? We don't know.
We have decided after one round of play, Mir will be departing the team. No explanation will be given, and Norbert is flying in right now to replace him. Or kicker, rather. Or whoever, really, they decide to bring along to the tournament.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they bench Norbert, they then bring back Norbert, they transfer as kicker, but they're playing with kicker. Like, how... Like, I don't get it. It makes no sense. And it's so annoying that there's a world in which they win this best of 3 and knock out FaZe. No, they can't do it. I can't do it.
I can hear the anger festering inside you right now.
All right, to make everybody happy, we'll do a 2-1, right? We'll do a 2-1 win for FaZe Clan. Hawker gets his little
overtime,
VP scare
all the
right
rounds.
down to the end. And then FaZe save the day by getting the win.
The one thing I
can't wait for you guys to be wrong. That's all I'm saying.
With FaZe in this matchup, they've been horrible on Mirage recently. And if VP pick that into them, then I do think there's a chance that they get the map at least. So I would go 2-1.
All right, cool. We're all in agreement then. FaZe Clan win 2-1. Thank you, Hawker.
Well, I mean, we're not in agreement, but
it's a unanimous decision as we head on to 9 versus G2.
I think there's a very clear winner in this matchup.
9.
Yeah, 9. Yeah.
Mate, this is just like a terrible matchup for 9 because their whole thing is that whenever I've seen them play, they still look like pretty good tactically and quite creative, but their players just don't look good enough. Like every time they just miss shots they should be landing. It's so frustrating because they're a fun little team, but I just don't think they have the players whatsoever. Like even when they were getting wins, it was kind of Hades that had to put up some pretty big numbers, and that does not really happen that consistently. So it's probably a 2-0
yep,
for
2-0
G2.
G2.
Honestly, I could see.
Yep, absolutely.
2-0
actually,
next,
wait.
Yeah.
Do you think even if it goes to Vertigo,
do they get the Vertigo pick? Yeah,
they
that's the
probably do play
question.
Vertigo into this match.
Oh no,
Do
they
you
are
still
probably
think that's
getting
enough?
I'm gonna say 2-0 G2 anyway.
Yeah, I don't
If
care.
Vertigo
Next.
plays, I say 2-1. Don't care. Love the
I'll say
enthusiasm,
2-0 still. Screw it.
Okay,
Screw
we'll go
it.
2-0.
2-0
Why not?
G2-0. Now we get on to another quick 2-0.
Yeah.
It's going to be Na'Vi taking on Furia. As we've
It's
discussed,
gonna be Na'Vi losing 2-0.
as we've discussed, Furia have just had a really terrible start with Fallen under the team. And, for the reasons we've discussed in depth earlier, the fact that, it's kind of a Frankenstein's monster, as Hawk would put it, of two teams with two different beliefs. And I don't think this is the finished product just yet. And Na'Vi are the opposite, right? They're a team that have brought in these two new young performers from the previous major. They're starting their endeavor on this new European team. And I feel like this is going to be a 2-0 for Na'Vi, and they're going to win it pretty comfortably.
The only thing that could happen in this series is maybe overpass for Furia, because Na'Vi had a pretty awful overpass against Astralis when they got eliminated. Like Buzz would just entry Monster every round. He literally got 8 opening kills on the T side just running through Monster. I just didn't understand how it kept happening. But that was a game that went super late, and yeah, realistically, I'd say Na'Vi 2-0.
I
Yeah,
think that
it should be
Alexa B
2-0.
is gonna. He's definitely gonna pull this team. They're only gonna get better over time. You can see it in NIP. Yeah, they had upsets towards the very end when the major happened, but you could definitely see that they were improving as they were going through. And I think when you've got Blade, who is a better coach than DJL, that they should just become a much better team and probably at a faster rate than I definitely think the Fury at least.
I think this
Yeah.
roster's so weird. I don't.
Which one?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly right. But I was specifically the Navi one.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I feel like you've put a lot of stock in basically one major performance to get IME and JL. So I agree. They
My
got a lot
thought
of
process
potential,
behind this
but
is, Brandon, if you're going to go international, who else were you going to pick up? I feel like those are the two best players to get when I thought about it more and more, because I certainly was of the mindset you were in at the start. I was like, oh, see, get rid of Electronic and Perfecto for JL and IMA. But if you realize you want to go international, well, these probably were the two best players you could have got, I think.
I think you definitely try and poach Frozen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, though, mate. Na'Vi are not big spenders. Na'Vi don't spend big anymore. They genuinely don't. They've been selling like academy players. The last big signing, like Na'Vi Meg, was probably, it might be all the way back to Electronic back in ages ago. Like they haven't really bought many players out because they've been able to get like Perfecto, really smart pickup, bit from the academy. So it doesn't seem like they want to spend that big. Is the kind of vibe I get.
Wasn't there reports that they did spend quite big on these two players? And I think JL put out like a counter to that saying it wasn't as much as that, but I think it was over the $1 million mark for the two players. So
really,
yeah. I'll look at the report now for you because it was definitely a high number.
That's what was rumored. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
They must have got a fair bit for Electronic and Perfecto though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you would think so.
Not trying to justify these players are worth as much money as they've spent, but
yeah. So there was a claim that was $1.35 million, but Na'Vi have refuted that claim. So the number, I'm not sure. Well, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah.
I mean, quite specific. The sketchy thing is that like, I don't know if I assume Ima would have cost more maybe because like he was probably a bit more hyped. I don't know what the contract situation was though. I thought Ima's contract was like maybe not that long, but I don't really know. Either way, like Ima is the one who looks very uncomfortable on this team right now. I think also the comms are going to take a while to get figured out, especially for Bit.
Only God can help.
Even Simple. Yeah, literally. That is a mad quote, isn't it?
It's so good.
Mad
For anybody who is unaware, Simple was asked in an interview about, how was Bit communicating in English? How was that sort of transition to communicating in English going, and who was helping him? And Simple goes, only God can help. It's just so good. It's just amazing.
Simple's got some jokes. He's got some jokes. No, but even Simple's English is not perfect. And the other thing is that we had a really cool setup at Cologne where we were commentating and we had like the players like way closer to us than normal. It was really sick. Like they were literally playing like right below us. And I think for Ima especially, I think it's a big culture shock for him actually. Having like Simple is a very, very intense guy when he's in game. Like he was constantly like quite loud, and he was one of the loudest players with his just normal comms. And I think you can see Ima looks like really a bit shook by everything that's going on. So that's the other thing, like the culture clash, because we know that Na'Vi historically have been a team where it's like they just tell you what they think straight up. They're going to tell you if they think you're doing something wrong or if you've been shit. Like SDY has even said it in the past, and he's had his little redemption arc on Monty because that team, he feels like believes in him a lot more. So you've got to have like a strong mentality when you're playing with some of these Na'Vi guys and Blade. So that's maybe the scary thing. You've got to find a middle ground there.
Yeah, so all in agreement. 2-0 for Na'Vi over Furia.
Yeah.
Lots to get through here as well. So MIBR Vitality, this is Vitality all day long, surely, right? I think we can all agree on that. 2-0.
Yeah, I don't think we need to have a discussion on it.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty obvious. MIBR not a team that is on the level of Vitality yet. But this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah,
Quarterfinals. Look at some of the teams in here.
Heroic and Gamer Legion back up for a rematch, and I think when you look at the rest of this bracket now, this is where you really have to start thinking about who is going to take these matches. So Heroic, are we thinking they can be upset again?
I think absolutely Heroic should be winning this
No.
series. I'm gonna go with Heroic winning this 2-0. Actually, they're just a better
Yeah,
team
I
overall
agree
than
with that.
Gamer Legion, so I would say they're moving through.
More convincing than the
I
winning
think-
Falcons. Though.
Oh yeah.
So do you
I think
Gamer
think
Legion are a
like
better team than
the
Falcons.
yeah, but I feel like if you had the old Gamer Legion lineup, they'd have more of a fight against Heroic here. But I don't. I feel like that Gamer Legion roster is still in transition, and you're now going up against Heroic that have just about stumbled over the line against the Falcons. Now they're feeling really confident going into the quarterfinals. We want to play that narrative. It's 2-0. I don't. There's no debate. I'm sorry. Like it just is 2-0. The map
Damn.
pools just plays into Heroic way better. The pieces in Heroic are just way better.
How about you?
I mean,
Hawker?
I could see it 2-1, but do a 2-0. Why not?
Yeah, we'll go
Why not?
2-0. C9 Ents.
Ooh.
I like. You would think that Ents should be carrying that momentum on, but you just can't look at C9 and not think about how scary this roster is.
Yeah, true. This is really hard to call because it's just a one best of 3, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go on the risk because I feel like that's my mentality for this tournament is to not play the percentages to the same way I would in other tournaments. Because single elimination, I'm gonna take the more risky pick, I think, on most goes. And so I'm gonna go with Cloud9 winning this one. Personally, you guys can disagree, obviously, but I feel like they're gonna win this 2-1. I just
So you're going for the risky pick, so that's why you went for FaZe over VP, right? I
yeah,
see
exactly,
now.
Hawk.
Because we all know VP.
It's always risky to predict against VP, right? There's always an element in there. So, but yeah, I think Cloud9 winning this one 2-1. Even though Ents have been a really good performing team lately, I've just got to believe in sort of the level that Cloud9 can get to, and I think maybe they'll rain down on Ents in the quarterfinals here.
Yeah, I've doubled up on C9 players in my fantasy team, so I'll go with them for this as well.
Damn. I do think Ents will still scrape this win personally, but like the difference in firepower is the scary thing, because like that's the one thing you would say about Ents. Even in this run at Cologne, it's not like their riflers were mad popping off. Even Nertz is like a little inconsistent.
I think
it was really kind of Pius who was kind of.
I think that was the problem as well when Snappy did the post-game interview after they lost the final, right? They said that we just got outclassed individually. There's absolutely nothing they could do. Whatever he was calling, sure, it might have been good on paper, but you got to hit the headshot, and they got completely outmatched and out-firepowered by G2. So that's why I'm going with Cloud9 winning this one.
You're talking me into it.
Yeah, wasn't there a quote from Saw after the first map? It was like, "What can you do to improve?" And he was just like, "Oh yeah, we just need to hit heads. I just need to shoot heads." And it was like,
Yeah.
I was probably
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing is, right, Electronics fragging is gonna be a little lower than we're like used to seeing. I think we kind of saw that in the Cologne playoffs. He had a pretty rough series there when Axel came back in, but against Ents, damn. All right, yeah, I'm with you guys. Bang the Cloud9 win on, just the firepower.
Yeah. 2-0.
I think it's 3 maps.
2-1
It's got to
has
be
to be.
2-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you agree as well, Brandon?
Okay.
Yeah. You pretty much have just you said all of the points I had in my head, and I was like, well, I'm not adding any more to this. C9.
What do you think about FaZe
Also,
G2 then, Brandon?
I think I'm lagging again, which isn't really helping. I don't know what it is. I think it's because it's like uploading at the same time, and my internet is like
Too many
crying.
fish in the room, man.
Yeah, probably. FaZe G2 is. Sorry, go on.
G2 just 2-0'd them, right, at Cologne. So
They
go with
did.
that.
G2 are going to win this one. FaZe don't look like that team
It
that
should be.
we know they can get to. I feel like FaZe are a lot weaker than they were even at earlier portions of this year. They've just been way too inconsistent, and I think their performance at Cologne doesn't leave me with a lot of confidence. So I think I'm going to go with G2 winning this one. They're in better form. I would say right now their individuals are playing better too, and G2 will be full of confidence coming into this one. So I've got G2 winning this one, and I'm actually going to go a little bit more risky again, and I think I'm going to go with a G2-0 over FaZe.
Yeah.
I mean, for what it's worth, in my bracket here, I've got a VP beating G2, but for this specific matchup, we'll go with G2. We'll go with G2.
All right, Hawk is on the VP Kool-Aid.
Do you know what? In my
I think
bracket that I've got on
G2.
my own account, it's the same.
Oh,
What were we saying, Brandon?
I think G2 win in 3. I don't think it's 2-0. I think it's a lot closer of a game, but I think G2 edge it based on momentum.
Yeah, I think because G2 played 9 in the first round, I'm gonna agree with Dinko on the 2-0.
Hell yeah. There we go. 2-0 for G2 coming in over
Yeah.
FaZe. Yeah, I think it's going to be the case. And then that sets us up for a lovely Vitality
Lovely
G2 game, doesn't it? That's going to be a Vitality G2 game for me.
Yeah.
It's the odd simple ZywOo matchup once again, and I think this really depends on if Ema can find that form again that he had at the major. But just so far, he's not shown it, and if he can show it, then maybe they take a map, maybe they can claw it out. But I don't, yeah, I don't see that happening. I think it's just a vitality win.
yeah.
It's 2-0.
Yeah, the
Everyone
clash
agree?
of Simple versus ZywOo. ZywOo is the clear best player in the world at the moment. His team is better around him. Vitality are just looking a little too good for Navi to compete with right now, and I hope Navi get to a level once again where they can compete, but I feel like Vitality have got this one in the bag. 2-0, I could see a world in which it's 2-1, but I would agree we'll go with the 2-0 for now. But Heroic Cloud9, that's a semi-final that might just be the demise of Heroic. I think that might just be the end of them, the end of their run through the Falcons and the Gamer Legion. What a run it was, but at the hands of Axile, it's going to fall, and it's going to be a Heroic going out in the semi-finals for me in this one.
Yeah, with Vitality, and we're just talking about Simple and ZywOo, I think the player that is going to challenge ZywOo most going into the year once C9 get up and running is Shiro. So I think this match is going to be completely.
Well, Brandon thinks it's going to be Donk, so we'll wait to see that one.
True. Give it
His
a
teammate
year when
comes out.
Donk is on C9, and then that team gets even better. So,
Ooh, that could
So
be
we're
cool,
talking
actually.
Copenhagen? Is he winning? Are they winning Copenhagen or?
huh? What? Sorry.
Are you saying that Donk's going to win Copenhagen?
No,
CS2 major?
no.
The one after that.
Wow, doesn't believe in his boy.
I believe in Donk supremacy. However, one player can't carry a team to win the major.
Simple would say otherwise, but
Well, he tried with
I'd
Team
say Simple
Liquid.
had
He made
better
it only to a
pieces.
final.
yeah, he did
Yeah.
try actually. Yeah, actually, that actually just proves it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Cloud9. I actually do. I just think Heroic, like, their whole identity was being this incredible, like, precise team. A lot of like nice aggressions at the right time. A lot of great team play. That was the thing that was weirdly missing. They had a lot of rounds where it didn't look like their team play was fully there. I don't think it will be back in time. And if it's not, then Cloud9, I think, will just have enough of a bare bones structure to show what they can do with those individuals. And yeah, I actually think Cloud9 take this.
we're saying 2-1?
It's got to be 2-1, yeah.
Yeah, I think
they
2-1 as
2-0
well.
it.
Yeah. For who? For Cloud9?
Cloud9, yeah.
Wow, Brandon.
Jeez.
I like it.
We'll stay the safe option for the time. I think
Okay.
with the 2-2-1s from Hawker and Dinko.
So we're thinking that Cloud9 are going straight to the final. Wow, that's impressive.
That is wild, isn't it?
That really is. When you think about it that way, you know, their first official game as a full team was the Cologne quarterfinal, right? So yeah, they're going to be straight into another playoffs. So I think that's really, really interesting. We're seeing Cloud9 get into the final already, in our opinion. But G2 Vitality, that's basically the grand final that I would like to see personally. So there we go. Nice little semi-final. We're getting a taste of everything here.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that this side of the bracket is so strong compared to the other one. I think because C9 is so unknown at the minute, they definitely are seeing that they're strong in terms of firepower. But I think really it's Ents Heroic on that side that are your like absolutes, you know, your teams that you can actually have confidence in. And the other side of the bracket, you've got a lot of firepower and a lot of teams that could definitely make the grand final. So I think G2 for me, they're going to carry the momentum over.
Yeah, I could see that. I think G2 could do it, but more I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna go with a more risky pick, following the philosophy that I had, and I'm gonna pick Vitality to win this one. They have Zywoo, the best player in the world, and I think a little bit more time. Flames and Spinks getting that Israeli power going on. Yes, I'm gonna go with Vitality winning it 2-1. Let's go a little bit risky on that one.
Ooh. Okay, how about you, Brandon?
I don't think that's risky. I think if Vitality played G2 in the arena at Cologne, I feel like Vitality would have won that game. So also we're putting a lot of stock into G2 coming off of a tournament and instantly doing well in the next one, and I don't think they're going to. So I think for that reason I'm going to say Vitality. I feel like it'll be 2-1. It'll go 3 maps. I'm with you, Dinko. I think Vitality will do it.
All right, that's pretty impressive.
Damn. I kind of think so too. Weirdly enough, I mean, you think back to like G2 after they won Katowice, they went into the next Pro League and then they lost against ENCE like pretty early in the playoffs. Obviously, listen, Pro League maybe wasn't as important for them, but it's just for me like G2 are a team where it's like, okay, do the individuals show up to like the ridiculous level that they can? Okay, cool, then they can win trophies. But I still don't think Hooksy is some like elite in-game leader. I think he's pretty good. He's giving his players a lot of freedom. And listen, Nico is terrifying in the form he's in, I will say. He opens up a lot of possibilities. I think the main thing was that Hunter played really well at Cologne. I think that was kind of huge because he for me is like the guy who's very smart player and gets into a lot of positions that kind of makes the calling way easier when he's at his best. Like he can get into those sneaky, lurky positions that can be good. But I just think if we see like a bit of a drop off on a couple of individuals, that Vitality have the better cooler, have the better structure. I love Apex like flashing Zywoo in quite a lot and getting him more involved and almost like forcing Zywoo to take some more initiative sometimes. So I actually do think Vitality will do this well because I actually even think it's not like the recent edition. Like I don't think Flames came in and did badly. I actually think he looked pretty solid from the get go. I think he looked fine. So I actually think Vitality take this 2-1.
Okay, then 2-1 Vitality. I definitely agree with what you're saying about Flames. I mean, he even found his way onto the top 5 that HLTV right after each of the events as well. So yeah, and Vitality C9. I feel like we're gonna have a lot of people leaning towards Vitality here after that discussion. I don't know if how convinced are we with C9? Because I feel like we're not, but we feel like they are the risk. So if we're going with Dinko's philosophy for this entire thing, C9 win the event.
No,
but...
I think at this point is when it changes. I think for Cloud9, they're a team that, sure, getting to a final is probably like so impressive if they do this sort of run, because you're going through teams like ENCE and Heroic to get there. You know, it is quite a difficult run once you get through that first round of 16. But I think the final, when you have Zywoo being at the sort of level he is this year, and as you were saying, I think they have currently the better, more structured caller even than Cloud9. So I feel like Vitality overall are just a better team at the moment. They have made less significant changes, so I feel like it's easier for them to kind of pick up of where they left off towards the Paris Major and sort of not have too many identity changes, whereas Cloud9 have to figure out quite a lot. And I feel like Vitality, when they head to a final, they're going to pull this one off. I feel like they've got this win. I think they might even win it 2-0, to be honest. I feel like you're going to be pushed to the limits on both of the maps, but I feel like Vitality can edge out. I'm going to go 2-0 in the grand final for Team Vitality.
I see Brandon shaking his head.
I don't agree with that. I think if we've got a Vitality Cloud9 final, I think you take a look at the caliber of teams that Cloud9 have beaten to get there. I think they're gonna be on so much more of a high compared to where Vitality have come from. Sure, they beat G2, but like that's probably it.
Yeah.
And I think for that reason alone, I'm gonna say Cloud9 will beat Vitality. That's who I've got.
I don't even think the Cloud9 run is as good as you're pointing out. Like the names they're beating are good, but I think if this happens, it's because they got a really interesting matchup against Ents, where I think their firepower actually just gives them like a huge edge in that one. And then I genuinely don't think Heroic are that good right now. I think they're still like a good team, but I don't think they're at their best. I don't think they're showing us what they're fully capable of, and I think that's why Cloud9 have a chance there. I think like if this final happens, I'm with Dinko. I think Vitality 2-0. I just think they've got like so much better structure here. I also think if G2 made the final, Cloud9 could also lose that 2-0, to be honest. So yeah, I have to take Vitality 2-0 here. I think that's a pretty good shout in my opinion.
Okay, we'll go with that agreement then.
That's actually, when we
Um,
look at this, I'm really happy with what we've done here, because if this happens, what an exciting tournament this will be. You know, single elimination the whole way. Look at the matches we're going to have.
There we go.
So, yeah, that's going to be really fun.
Our picks have been submitted, so we will take a look at this the next time that we have the podcast, and we'll see how we've done.
Can you do another one and just
yeah, it's
have VP win in just in case?
The alternative
just
bracket
make
is
this.
we do have VP
Yeah.
win.
No, not at all. Completely shut that down. But yeah, this has been our Pinnacle Stack podcast. If there's anything else that you guys have to bring up before we close out, then now's the time.
Just that these non-VP believers are actually going to be proven so wrong when VP destroy FaZe. It's actually an embarrassing pick from you guys, honestly. I think you need to look in the mirror, have a hard look at yourselves, because that's a poor pick. From you guys.
Okay, yeah. On a more interesting note, why have you got a shopping bag in your window, Alex?
You know, that's just where I keep it. You know, it's like boom.
All right, yeah.
Easy access.
Don't like looking
let's
out the
go.
window. Pay all this money to see the shard, but I'm
no.
gonna put a Tesco bag up on the wall. That's a good move right there, Alex.
Yeah, mate. It's
I like it.
Pay an
It's
homage to
aesthetic, You
Cypher.
won't get it, Dinko. All right, Mr. Aquaman.
Man,
over
I
there.
am deep in the ocean, and you could do nothing about it.
And this is why
Actually,
guys
you're
don't
just
trust
in
me
the tank
anymore.
behind me, mate.
Don't make me bring up that situation, Hawk. Do not make me bring up that situation.
I thought it was your situation.
Well, you know.
I don't know. There's been some rumors going around on.
I'll leave it at that. Pinnacle podcast exclusive may be coming up.
Yeah, exclusive drama. We're gonna have some like Geordie Shore style team come in and record both of you guys at your next event.
Oh, Hawk and I
Yeah,
will never be at
thank
the
you
same
for
event ever
watching,
again.
guys.
So
Is that ever confirmed? Ever?
yeah,
Doesn't matter the esport.
maybe Rocket League down the line.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. At the end of your careers, you'll come back reunited in Rocket League.
Mm.
I like that arc. That's almost as good as VP winning.
Almost.
Yeah, guys, thank you for watching the podcast. You can check us out in all the links below. You can check these guys out below in the description as well. And yeah, thank you for watching and tuning in.